so we're gonna go to Lightroom. I have a series of photos here from a photo shoot that I did, and I'm gonna pick 12 selects. You have 12 selects, just so you know, um, for your final designer statement. Okay, and so don't look at the actual shots here because this is not representative of what your shots will look like, but just I'm going to grab some files for this demo. Um, so I'm just going to pick 12, and I'm actually going to pick 12 photos all in the same orientation, just so that this works better. So I'm just going to go through and pick the first 12 here. Do, 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 do. Think that should be good. It's 14, so we'll cut off the last two. Okay, so I have 12 here. I've filtered my film strip to be 12. So what we're going to do is pretty similar to the what we've been doing, exporting. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to export. But there's going to be one main change to my export settings. So I'm going to go through my exports like I would. I would choose the folder where I want to put this. So I'm going to put this in the folder. Oh yeah, I'm going to name the folder. I'm going to name this final photos for print. And then actually, let's change the name of this folder. I'm going to make one general folder for my final. So we'll say digital photography final. And then we'll make my folders accordingly. So I'm going to go back to Lightroom. I'm going to choose a different location. I'm going to go to my digital photography folder, digital photography final. Okay, and in here, in the folder for the digital photography, there's going to be two different types of exports. So I'm going to make an exports folder, and inside of here, I'm going to make a new folder, and this one is going to be exported exactly how we usually do it, at 72 PPI. So I'm going to make a folder called 72 PPI because I'm going to need this. I'm going to need these photos for the digital submission. Whatever you turn into Canvas, you want to turn in still 72 as we've been doing the whole quarter, 72 PPI. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that location. I'm going to name this digital photography final photos. And I'm going to, in my file name, I'm going to put the term 72 PPI so I know that these are the lower resolution photos. These are not the ones I'm going to send to print. The settings we've been using all quarter, 1920 pixels on the width side and 72 pixels per inch. Okay, and 80%. So all of that stays the same. I want to export those so that I have them to combine in Adobe Acrobat for my single PDF. Those are my 72 PPI files. So once I've exported those, that's done. I know that those are there. I can see the progress bar here. I'm going to go back and I'm going to re-export the same shots, the same 12, because we need these 12 photos as different sized files to then prepare to be printed. Everything stays the same except the location. I'm going to change my location. I'm going to make a new folder and call it 300 PPI. The name, I'm just going to amend the name, and I'm going to amend the name 300 PPI. So again, so I know that these are the larger files. And this is where the main changes happen, okay? I'm going to actually take this 80% and I'm going to put it back to 100. And then right here where it says resize to fit, I'm actually going to uncheck that. uncheck the resize to fit right here. We've been using resize to fit the entire quarter. I'm going to uncheck resize to fit, and I'm going to change the resolution to 300 pixels per inch. Once you do that, you go ahead and hit export again. Now, what you're going to notice about these files is that they are much, much larger than what you've been used to be using. So do not try to upload the 300 PPI files. They will bog down. They won't upload, basically. The files are too big. And I'll show you that. The export just finished. So if I go to the folder where these files are, in my export folder, notice I have two folders, 72 PPI and 300 PPI. They're the same files. However, if I look at the difference in file size, in the 72 PPI folder, this file is 2.1 megabytes. I can hit spacebar and preview it. There's the photo. If I go to the other folder, 300 PPI, and go to the same file, it is 16 megabytes. Also, the dimensions is much bigger. The dimensions on this are 3,419 pixels by 5,129 pixels versus the dimensions of this are what we set them to, 1920 by 2,880. Okay, so the thing with this is you can also see the resolution in the file information as well. This file, although when I hit spacebar, it's the same size on the computer, the one that is amended with 300 PPI is a bigger file. And so that's why it's important that we use that file to now create our document that we are going to take to either Staples or FedEx to print on photo paper. Okay. From there, now I have my files. I know I have my files. And I want to basically, what we're going to be doing is arranging the files in a format that can be printed. Okay. So I know I've already told you that a board that size, 24 by 18, is what it's going to need to fit all the photos on the board. But paper is not that big. Like whatever paper that you would print on at FedEx or at Staples, the printer is not going to print on 24 inches by 18. We have standard sizes of paper. There is 18 by 11, which is just a normal standard size paper that's in this printer right here. 8.5 by 11. And then you also have 11 by 17, right? 11 by 17 is going to get you a little bit bigger sheet, and probably Staples or FedEx have that size of photo paper, okay? Safest bet is this size here, just in case. So 8.5 by 11, and organizing your photos on an 8.5 by 11 canvas. So what that means is you're going to have multiple paper prints, and then you're going to cut out the photos, right? But we want to maximize our real estate on the paper so that we don't have to print just one 4x6 in the middle of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an 8.5 by 11 canvas. I'm going to make my width 11 and my height 8.5 in Photoshop. So I just hit new file, and I'm in inches. That's important. We are working in inches. We want to work in inches. The other thing is here, we want to set our resolution to 300 pixels per inch. This document also needs to be 300 pixels per inch as we lay out our photos on files that can be printed. So we want to we're working in inches and 300 pixels per inch. Once you do that, you hit create, and then you see something like this. And it just looks like a sideways piece of paper, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dropping in our exports into this canvas, and we're going to lay them out in an organized way that we can then save as files to then take with us to the printer, okay? So Photoshop has layers. So what we're going to do, a quick way is drag and drop. It's something that I'm used to doing, and then the layers populate. but there's also ways you can do this through file and import. But I'm going to show you the drag and drop method. And one of the things you can't see is how many times I hit enter. But if I'm dragging 12 files into my Photoshop file, how many times do you think I have to enter for all of those files to get into Photoshop? 12 times. Yeah. So I'm going to highlight everything and I'm just going to drag it over into my Photoshop file. Okay. When I let go, I only see the first one. But as I said, it's 12 files, so I need to hit enter or return 12 times. So I'm just going to breeze through that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. My computer will catch up eventually. It is doing it, and eventually what you'll see is all the layers populated here. They're all here and on the bottom. Let me actually move this so it sees the whole screen. There we go. Okay, so I can close this. Here are all my layers within this document. Now, this is not 4x6. This is 8.5 tall. That's too big. So I need to get all my photos down to a 4x6 size. So here's the quickest way to do that. And it's a quick key, okay? By holding Command or Control T, as in transform, you get the transform tool on whatever layer you currently have selected. So in this instance, I'm going to select the first layer here down at the bottom, and I'm going to hit, actually, I'm going to select the topmost layer because that's the one that I'm seeing right now. And I'm going to hit Command T. What that does is, so I've selected the topmost layer, the one that I'm seeing, and I hit Command T, and notice I have a bounding box around my layer. At the very top, once I have this, I have some dimensions up here, a width and a height, and it's based on percentages right now. At the very top, there's some percentages here. I can right click on the percentage. So right click directly on the percentage, and I can change it to a dimension that I'm working in. We're working in inches, so I'm going to change that to inches. Now my height is recorded in inches, and I'm going to do the same thing for my width. In the middle of the width and the height, there is this little link, and you want to make sure it's highlighted. So that means if I change either of these things, the other one will change. If I change either of these things, the other one will change. And then I'm going to change the width of this photo to 4 inches. Now, if you notice, this is a standard size. This is why in Lightroom, if you do change your crop tool, you change and rearrange your framing, you want to make sure you constrain proportions because the size that the camera shot is proportional to 4x6. The camera shot a 4x6 frame. Okay, so notice the width, the height also changed. So I'm just going to hit enter. You're going to do this for every layer. Click on the next layer, hit Command or Control T, come up here, change the width to 4x6 and hit enter. Sorry, you hit enter to solidify the change. Yes, question. Yeah, so I have portrait shots right now, and the reason why I'm changing the width is 4. But if you turn this sideways, which I'm going to do in a second, you'll see that the height would be 4. Yeah, and then the width would be 6. So long edge is 6, short edge is 4. So I'm just going to go through and a quick way to do this is that you can select all the layers that you would like to change the size, also hit Command T, and then go in and change the dimensions that way as well. And multiple layers change at once. So I hit enter, but you have to select all those layers. So now all my layers are sitting on top of each other. You can't see much of them. And based on my paper size, I think I can use my real estate a little bit better. I'm going to also hit the Command T tool or the transform tool, Command or Control T, and I'm going to rotate my layers on their side. In this instance, you might not have to do this if your photos are already this way, but I think I hit enter. What that allows me to do is move my photos around a little bit better so I can use my real estate a little bit better. Then I'm going to take my photo, I'm going to move it over here. And one by one, I'm going to pull my photos out from underneath each other. So here's my first topmost layer. I'm going to go to the next photo below it, and I'm going to pull it out to the side. And I'm going to put it on top. And then I'm going to go to my next photo, and I'm going to pull it out to the side. Now notice I can't fit it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command or Control T again. I'm going to rotate it back onto its side, and here we go. Now I'm able to fit 3 photos on one page. 3 photos on one page. We have 12 photos. So how many pages are we going to need to make? 4. So I know that I have organized the topmost 3 photos. 1, 2, and 3. Those are the ones that are visible to me right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all the other layers visibly and only have those 3 there. Now, another way to do this so you can keep track is you can put these 3 layers in a folder and call that folder page 1. How you do that is you select all 3 layers. So I shift selected my 3 layers here. And down at the bottom of the layers palette, there is a folder icon. See it here? It's very small. It looks like a little folder, a file folder. And it says create a new group. So once you click that with layers selected, it puts the selected layers into their own group and defaults that folder, calling it group 1. I can change the name of this by clicking on it and naming it page 1. Okay, so now I have, if I hit the little eyeball here, I can turn off page 1 like that. I'm going to repeat this process until I have 4 pages. So I'm going to come in here and now turn on the next 3 layers and turn off page 1 because I don't want to see page 1. And I'm going to move my photos out from underneath each other like I just did the last set. Here we go. Turn on its side. Yes, when you hit Command T, that is the quick tool for the free transform tool, which shows you the bounding box here. Yeah. And then when you're done transforming, you hit return or enter to solidify that transformation. So remember to change the sizes when I first imported, they were too big. I also hit Command T to get the free transform tool, and that allowed me to change it to 4x6. So now I have these 3 here. I'm going to create page 2. Turn off page 2, turn on the next 3. Move from underneath each other. And put in a folder page 3. Turn that off and the next 3. By the way, when you rotate this photo, in order to rotate it just in like notches, like equal distances, hold shift, and then shift will just lock it into place when it's 90 degrees rotated. There we go. Select all those, and we put into page 4. Okay, now we have our 4 pages, different set of photos. The rotation here, remember, even if this one is supposed to be mounted to your board, landscape, you just turned it on its side just to print it. These photos are going to be cut out. So you're going to be able to mount them in the appropriate orientation as they're supposed to be, right? So now what I need to do is save each one of these groupings as an individual file. Save each one of the groupings as an individual file. So what we're going to do is a rotation of a process of turning the eyeball on a group, saving it, turning it off, and going to the next group and turning that eyeball on, saving it, turn that off, next group, so on and so forth. So now I have this group saved. For purposes of the file name, I will turn this page off and go back to page 1, right? And I will go to File, Save as Copy. File, Save as Copy. If you get a window that looks like this on your computer, you want to click on the button in the bottom left-hand corner that says Save on my computer. You don't want to save this to the cloud. You want to save it on your computer. Okay? Save as copy. And then you want to save it on your computer, and you want to find a location on your computer that you're going to save it, which is the exports folder in the folder for this project, which is Digital Photography Final. Okay? I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to do Files for Print. And I'm going to name it Digital Photo Final for Print 1. And I'm going to change the file type. You're just going to change it to a JPEG. Okay? You're going to change the file type to a JPEG. So my naming is based on what this is. This is page 1 of the file for print. And I'm going to hit save. It's going to ask me what quality you want this JPEG to be, and I'm going to say maximum 12. It might default there, it might not. You might need to change it. It might default to 8. So change it to 12, and I'm going to hit OK. Page 1 saved. Repeat. Turn off the eyeball, turn on the eyeball on page 2. File, save as copy, save on my computer, go to my location that I want it to save. And here's a little trick. I want to keep the same name file structure. You see that the grayed out here is the file I just saved, the page 1. If you click on this, it populates the file name up here. And all I have to do is change the 1 to a number 2. Then I'm going to come down. You have to do this again. Change the file type to a JPEG from the drop-down menu right here. And then you hit save. And then your quality, again, is going to be maximum. And we repeat. Go to page 3. Turn that on. File. Save as copy. Save on my computer. I don't know why it doesn't just default to that. Then click on the previous file that I just saved, change that number to the number 3, change my file type to JPEG, and hit save and maximum. And then lastly, we do page 4, file, file, save as copy, save on my computer, click on that file there, change the number to number 4, change the file type to JPEG, and hit save. If you do not change the file type, it will try to make a Photoshop file. And it'll ask you, are you sure you want to have an extension that's JPEG for a Photoshop file? That's how you know you made a mistake and you didn't change the file type. So make sure you change the file type to a JPEG. We don't need to bring Photoshop files to FedEx or Staples for them to open. They probably won't do it, and it's just way too complicated. So you want to save it as a JPEG. The key thing is that our document is 300 PPI. That started at the beginning. If you do not set it to 300 PPI at the beginning, then your files in this document will be too small to print. Okay, they won't print quality. That's the key thing. Now, what we've made is high resolution JPEGs, 4 of them, 4 high resolution JPEGs that fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that we can then cut out 4x6 prints from. The key thing is that you print this on quality paper, photo paper, because this is a lot of colors. It will be a lot of colors. It will be a lot of ink. Once we have this, then it's on you to determine how you cut them out. If you want to leave a little white border around them, if you would like to try to cut exact to the edges of the photo, if you would like to mount each photo individually on another piece of foam core or white paper border around it, and then put it on your foam core board, that is on you on the organization. Now notice, I did not leave equal borders necessarily on this side to this side. So that's something to think about when you're rearranging this, when you're arranging, is that do I want to have a white border and leave myself space? So maybe all of these need to be shifted slightly so that your border gives you enough room to cut evenly and so on and so forth. I'll leave it up to you to decide how you do that. But that is how we get. So what you would then, let's see, what you would then send to, say, for example, FedEx. FedEx has something called Print and Go. Basically, it's an email that printandgo@fedex.com. When you send it, it sends you back an email with a code that you can access your files to print. The person at the desk can also access that to print. The printers in FedEx that are out on the floor do not have the photo paper loaded into them, so you have to go to the desk to have them print it with the photo printers in the back. These files are fairly big. In fact, the folder with these files, the total size is 23.7 megabytes. That is just under what you can email. The most you can email is 24 megabytes. So you might, depending on your photos, have to send 2 emails if you use something like FedEx to do print and go. But you can also bring these files on a jump drive or something like that, or a hard drive, and give it to the person at the desk. Say, hey, all 4 files are on here and need them printed on photo paper, please. And they'll print them. One thing I will say is that sometimes colors do not print exact. Sometimes they print darker, sometimes they print lighter. What I would suggest is potentially maybe printing 1 page and seeing how it looks. And if you're like, oh man, the colors are really dark or the colors are really light, then go back into Lightroom and make some adjustments with your exposure and your sliders. Re-export your photos, swap out the arrangement, and print again. Now, in order to do that, you can't wait till the last minute to print these, because if you're waiting till the last minute, you won't have time to go back to your computer and re-edit and rearrange. So just to give that caveat, if you do wait till the last minute, you might not be happy with the photos, how they printed. They might be too dark or they might be too light, depending on the ink and the toner and the paper and so on and so forth. What they look like on the screen is one thing, but then when you get these blacks and different colors in ink on papers, it's a whole nother thing, right? So that is how I would suggest to get your files sorted in this size remember the board size. Somewhere around that will allow you to fit 12 photos onto the board, 24 by 18 and 4 by 6 prints. Yes. The little foam core, if you want it to be more sturdy and presentable, like the foam core presentation board, the photo should just be in a grid. It's as simple of a grid, as neat as a grid as possible. Yeah. You don't even need your name on the front. Just what you're going to be doing is on the back of the board, you will print your designer statement and stick it to the back of the board. Yeah. But the front should be just as neat and clean as possible, where the photos are the presentation.
Okay, so
Yeah.
no design.
Huh?
Like we shouldn't like
If you want to frame your photos in your room, but think about it, you want the photos to be the like if they're in an art gallery, you want them to stand out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you do want to frame your photos slightly, or like I said, double mount them, then that is an option to make them look neat, right? Um, so uh, yeah, that's the process. That is the process. The key thing is making sure that when you're in Lightroom, because you can get confused, it's the same set of photos that get exported twice. One export is in 72 resolution at 1900 pixels, 1920 pixels wide that we've been doing the whole quarter. The reason why you need those is you're still going to turn in a digital version of this assignment. I want everybody to make sure you heard that. You will still turn in a digital version of this assignment with your selects and your contact sheet. If you notice in the instructions for this assignment, I would like your contact sheet to show that you shot or attempted 100 shots. That's very easy to do when you're trial and error, right? So remember that. Just go shoot and then import all of that into Lightroom and show me that you attempted. But your selection of photos, the key selects are 12 shots. Okay. So, for example, just to refresh on that, if I turned off the filters on this in this photo shoot, what I have imported into Lightroom is 188 photos. Okay. So what I would have done if this is all the shots I shot for the assignment, I would just hit select all. I would go to my print tab to create my contact sheet, and I would have this 4x5 contact sheet selected. And my contact sheet is 9 pages because of how many photos it is. Okay, so um, just a reminder of that. And then you're going to have a folder in the folder for the assignment in the exports folder. One is going to be 72 and labeled. Make sure you label your files when you're exporting because that will help you keep track. And the other is 300. And then you'll know only use the 300 when you go to Photoshop. Because if you use the 72 when you go to Photoshop, it is going to be an issue. The photos will be less quality. Last reminder is that when you go to Photoshop and you imagine this is fresh start and you do file new, make sure that the resolution here at the beginning is 300 pixels per inch. And you're dealing with dealing with inches here. Sorry, 300. You're dealing with inches here, 11 by 8.5, because that's your paper size that you're going to use, that you're going to take to the printer. Okay. So some key things you have to remember. If you don't and you keep going along the process, it will be confusing or it won't set you up for success in the end of the process. So that is something important to remember. Yes, question. Yeah, when you're going to be your export process. So when you export the photos, you're going to export in two separate ways. The first way is the way that we've been doing, or I mean, you can do it in any order you want. You could do the 300 first and then go back to the 72. But just know that in Lightroom, you have to set the export to 300. So in order to do that, we unchecked resize to fit. It should not be checked. And we typed 300 in this section here. And the quality is 100. If we want to go back to our previous setting of 72, you would need to resize to fit. Check this here. We have our dimension loaded and we would need to change the resolution back to 72 and our quality back to 80. If you did it in the other order. And remember the file name, make sure the file name represents which resolution you're currently working with. So in the file name, it should either say 72 or 300 based on the export. Okay,